one of the things that he did do that's very positive is before he was president, mostly the whites were, educated enough to get some of the top management jobs. Now, anybody who is educated well enough has a fair shot at the jobs. He was very intelligent. He fought for what was right, even though a lot of people made it very difficult. And he made a lot of positive changes for the country. It was a country where there were more black people than white people, but the white people had all the power, politically, at work, in the home, and especially in the generation of my parents. At the time that he was sent to prison, he wasn't very well known. When he was released from prison, when he was elected president, he was a household name. But back when he was protesting and he was sent to prison, he wasn't well known at all.
What is a legacy? A legacy is how someone is remembered, what contributions they made, or the pathways that guide people in decisions with what to do or what not to do. Nelson Mandela made many contributions in his life and influenced others to make good choices throughout their lives. Mandela has had a tremendous impact not only on South Africa, but on the world. The legacy he left for others is peace, equality, and to fight for whatever they believe in. Mandela sacrificed his and his family's lives to reach his goal, and he did not and would not stop until he did. He has taught everybody to never give up on what they believe in.
Nelson Mandela was brought into this world on July 18th of 1918 in the small village of Mvezo. Being a member of the royal family of the Thembu tribe, he grew up with tribal chiefs and elders. His father gave him the name Roli Slawla, but his teacher said he must have a Christian name and changed it to Nelson. Soon afterwards, Mandela's father, Gadla Henry Mfakaniswa, was deprived of his chief status and they moved to Kunu. His father died when Mandela was only 9 years old. Nelson was the first in his family to attend school and finished his junior certificate in 2 years, rather than 3.
Before Nelson Mandela's influence, South Africa had been filled with apartheid, which he realized when he went to Johannesburg. Black and white people were completely divided with things like different bathrooms and beaches. Nelson did not like his experiences and immediately wanted to take a stand and fight for freedom. Mandela was faced with countless obstacles that would merely delay his journey to give people their freedom. These challenges, however, did not completely stop him from reaching his goal.
Throughout his high school years, he excelled in boxing and track, along with academics. In 1939, he attended the University of Fort Hare. He and many other students were expelled for participating in a boycott against the university and its policies. The king who took care of him after his father died was outraged and said that if he didn't go back to Fort Hare, he would arrange wives for him and his cousin Justice. He decided to run away and live in Johannesburg in 1941. He worked as a mine security officer there and then in law firm Witkin, Edelman, and Stelsky. He studied law at the University of Witwatersrand. There, he became involved in a movement against racial discrimination. He also joined the African National Congress, also known as the ANC, and worked to establish its youth league, ANCYL. He then completed his business analytics through the University of South Africa and went back to Fort Hare for his graduation in 1943.
In the 1948 election victory of the Afrikaner-dominated National Party, which introduced racial classification and segregation, which was called apartheid, restricted non-whites' basic rights and barred them from government while maintaining white minority rule. Mandela helped organize protests and non-violent actions such as strikes, boycotts, and civil disobedience. He and Oliver Tambo also opened the country's first black law firm. Because of this, Mandela and 155 other activists were arrested on December 5, 1956. They then went on trial for treason. All defendants were found not guilty in 1961. In 1962, police fired on calm and peaceful protesters in Sharpeville. 69 people were killed. The massacre caused many riots and anger throughout the country. The ANC was forced to go underground and hide using disguises because the government banned the organizations. Mandela knew then that he needed to take a different approach than passive resistance.
Nelson Mandela co-founded the Umkhonto we Sizwe, also known as MK, which was a new wing of the ANC. Nelson Mandela directed the MK to launch a sabotage campaign against the government. In 1962, he traveled illegally to a conference of African nationalist leaders in Ethiopia and underwent guerrilla training in Algeria. Shortly after he returned, he was arrested and sentenced to 5 years in prison. The charges were leaving the country and encouraging a workers' strike. Police then attacked an ANC hideout and arrested a group of MK leaders while Mandela was in prison. Mandela and other activists were brought to stand trial for sabotage, treason, and violent conspiracy along their colleagues. Mandela and other activists barely escaped execution and were instead sentenced to life in prison. Nelson had once stated, "I have cherished the idea of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve, but if needs be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die." They were sent to Robben Island. Then in March 1982, he was moved to Pollsmoor Prison.
He was released on Sunday, February 11th of 1990, after 27 years in prison. This release was 4 months after his other comrades and 9 months before the unbanning of the ANC and PAC. When he was in prison, he rejected at least 3 offers to be released.
Fight the battle for dignity on the very first day you go to jail.
Really?
And that's what we did. We put our foot down and insisted in being respected, even though we're prisoners. And we eventually succeeded in that.
Mandela ended white minority in 1991, was elected president, and won the Nobel Peace Prize on April 27, 1994, along with President F.W. de Klerk.
Nelson Mandela left a legacy of always fighting for your beliefs that had a cultural and economic impact. He brought together a divided nation, which much less bloodshed than what could have been. After spending 27 years in prison, no one would have blamed him if he wanted revenge, but instead he went for friendship.
He brought out a new economic era and even greatly influenced pop culture. He contributed to the world, so the world is his legacy. Nelson Mandela became the first black president of South Africa in 1994. He defied all expectations by reaching out to his former oppressors as allies in forming the new South Africa. Nelson Mandela embodied unity.
He was the one person who brought South Africans across the racial divide together. The legacy he left for others is peace, equality, and to fight for whatever they believe in. Mandela sacrificed his and his family's lives to reach his goal, and he did not and would not stop until he did. He has taught everybody to never give up on what they believe in.
In essence, Nelson Mandela was a triumphant leader and was a dignitary man. He was proud of what he did and accomplished his goal no matter how tough the moments became. What he did was not only for himself, his goal was for every South African to live in peace and equality. He didn't only fight for South Africa, Mandela fought for Africans all over the world. His legacy will forever be remembered.